Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Dotson, and I am the host of Poetry Today. I have two guests with me today. The first is Kate Hutchinson. She's taught English for 30 years at Buffalo Grove High School, and for the past 2 summers, she's also taught poetry writing at National Louis University. Her new book of 50 poems and prose poems centered on Midwest life is titled Map Making: Poems of Land and Identity, and was recently published this month by THEAQ Press, or THEAQ Press in Minnesota. Her previous chapbook of poetry, The Gray Limbo of Perhaps, was published in 2012 by Finishing Line Press. She's the mother of an adult child with autism, and her own mother died when she was just 22, so her life has had its challenges. She is most at peace when reading, writing, or walking among tall trees and listening to the wind. My second guest is Marjorie Skelly, sitting next to me. She's also an award-winning poet, short story writer, and a published essayist, and I've just discovered the sister of one of our Highland Park Poetry's previous members, Carol Glore. Marjorie has taught English at Loyola University, DePaul University, and Northeastern Illinois University in Chicago. She's also taught poetry writing revision at the Harold Washington Library in Chicago, and both poetry and fiction writing at Eisenhower Library in Harwood Heights, Illinois. Marjorie loves singing, and she currently sings with the Edgewater Singers of Chicago. She lives with her husband, Jim, in Chicago, and is very happy to have her first book, The Unpublished Poet, published with a company called ACTA. Since we're talking about your love of singing, Marjorie, would you just tell us briefly about your upcoming concert in December?
Sure. I'll try to make it brief. The Edgewater Singers is this wonderful choral group that I sing in, and we're offering a concert called Midwinter Dreams, and the concert will be on December 12, 2015, in the beautiful sanctuary of St. Gertrude's Church, and that's located at 1420 West Granville Avenue in Chicago. And at concert's end, I will be selling The Unpublished Poet to any interested parties attending the concert. And 10% of all sales will go to the Edgewater Singers. And for further information, please contact the Edgewater Singers at 773-506-8085 or at info@edgewatersingers.org. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So I'm sure that will be well worth for any Highland Park residents who want to drive into the city for a midwinter concert. That'd be great. One of the things that was exciting for me to invite Kate and Marjorie today is that they met over 30 years ago while they were in graduate school at Northeastern Illinois University in Chicago and were studying literature. They took their master's comps. What the heck is that?
Hard.
Yeah, we studied for a year. It's comprehensive exams based on the entire course of study, and it involved pretty much writing all day long.
It felt like it.
Three essays.
So that was a very strong, powerful bonding experience, or mutual suffering.
That's a good way to put it, actually.
Right. And you mentioned to me when we were talking about the show that while you both found your own path to writing poetry, that it was this common pursuit of writing and shared passion for writing has kept your friendship strong for over the years. And it's just been a lucky, happy coincidence that you both have books coming out about the same time.
Yeah.
Which is fabulous.
It really is.
Within days, really, we found out. She wrote me about hers, and then the next day I was writing back to her saying, well, how about that? Me too. So it was very fun.
Wonderful.
Well, talk to us a little bit about what went into this book. I mean, how long did it take for you to create your manuscripts? Were your paths in creating these books different, or what are the approaches? I mean, I know that structurally they are unique. Mm-hmm. Yours is really just poetry and prose poems, right. But it has a very strong focus. This place as and the idea of map making. You want to talk about that briefly?
Sure. Yeah. So I've written hundreds of poems over the years, and I decided it was time, after having the chapbook come out, to put a full length book together, and I wasn't, it was a summer project for me. I really wasn't thinking I was going to get this thing published anytime soon, but I started to see these kind of themes jump out at me. Some of my strongest work is about, not only my identity, my family's identity, but anyone's identity and how it really is tied to where they live. And what, the idea of that we're drawn to a region or a type of place, partly because of who we are and our past, our heritage perhaps, but then that then continues to help form who we become, and how where we live and where we are from really becomes a huge part of our personalities, I think. So that was kind of this movement back and forth of the sense of self and the sense of place that I weave throughout the book. And it's divided into 4 sections, and the last section is really focused more on the planet and the animals and the caretaking of the other creatures in the place where we live.
Okay, the stewardship.
So
the
yes, right.
Right.
Stewardship of each other.
Okay.
And of the land and of all the creatures. So.
And actually, since you touch on place, I think the first poem you mentioned in your book is Suburbanites.
Yes.
Why don't you go ahead and dive right in and
All
give us a sample about some of your writing?
Sure,
That'd be great.
and this one I actually wrote after I'd finished the manuscript. I decided it needed a little introductory poem.
Oh, okay,
So
perfect.
this poem is very unusual for me. It's very short and it's very structured with rhyme, little stanzas. So, but it seems like an introduction. So it's just called Suburbanites. We're both what boils from the campfire pot and what's drawn in to the savory heat. We line the beach, a dense row of shells. We swirl like dust motes orbiting Mars. We're the castle's moat, the pie crust's lip, the loosening belt around the city's hips. A stitch of the hem at the outskirts' knees, we sever the threads and disappear into green. So that's, that suburban idea of where, we're drawn into the city and yet then we escape from the city. And there's this constant, going back and forth.
Right. No, very, very, very cool. And you're the one with the THEAC Press. So
yes,
how did you get connected with THEAC?
Well, they're a very small startup, family-run publishing company outside of Minneapolis, and I learned of them through a family member of the family that runs the press. He's been a big fan of my poetry for a few years. He and I go way back to community theater together out of college, and he let me know that some of his family members were looking to expand beyond just a couple of genres that they had been publishing. And he really encouraged me to send a poetry manuscript, and lo and behold, I had just put this manuscript together.
Wow.
So the timing was serendipitous, and I sent it, and with his strong endorsement and, letting them know that I thought I could find an audience for poetry. They were a little skeptical about that at first, but they really liked the poetry, and we dove in, and it was a wonderful experience. They're the essential, quintessential professionals. I found them very, very nice to work with, got back to me right away, and were open to my ideas about the poetry and how I wanted the poetry to be in the manuscript.
So, but did they do any major modifications to the manuscript, or was it just sort of they sort of accepted it and then?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. So.
Yes, it was nice to not have to fight over things.
Sure.
Because, as poets, we know what we want our poems to be, and I didn't want to mess with them too much. So.
Okay. Well, and how many years was that process of assembly? I mean, I'm not necessarily of writing your hundreds of poems at which you distilled into the manuscript, but when you said it was a summer project, so really it was just that one. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Last summer?
Just this past summer.
Oh my God.
And I am a teacher, so when he accepted it in the first week of August, he gave me till end of October to finish the manuscript, and I said, you know what, I want to get this done before school starts. So I've been around the clock for a couple of weeks, and I got it pretty much finished before school.
Oh, wow.
So it was a mad rush, but I'm happy with how it turned out. So.
Great. And Marjorie, talk to me about the unpublished poet, which is kind of a sort of an ironic title.
It really is, I know. Actually, I didn't come up with it, the publisher did, and then he added on never giving up on your dream. And to some extent, the whole book is at least in some way related to the trials of trying to get published.
Right.
And in my case, more the poetry. than anything else. And what I like about this publisher very much is that, well, he made me realize that, as always, poetry can be a very tough sell. And he thought I'd have a better chance of marketing the book if it included essays, short stories, and poetry. So actually the third part of the book is in fact a poetry book in and of itself. If it had gotten published on its own, it wouldn't be a chapbook because there was enough poetry in it to constitute a full-length book.
Right. So now, you didn't, so when you submitted your manuscript to ACTA, you didn't submit it, you submitted it just as just the poems? Or
Actually, what I did initially was I only submitted a few sample poems because I didn't want to inundate him, because then that way if he didn't like it and, you know.
Sure. Right.
But
that's nice.
What was amazing to me is I've never seen anything like it in my life. 2 days later, even my best friends would not have done this. 2 days later, he writes me back and says, this should be published. I almost fell out of my chair because that's just so unlikely to hear from any publisher.
I mean, okay, and your name is Cinderella? That's good. Okay. Wow. Okay, that was kind of like winning the lottery.
Yeah, it does feel that way from time to time. The other thing that was really nice, and I still am in a state of shock about this, but he asked a former poet laureate of Indiana to write a foreword, and he didn't have enough time to do that. But he actually wrote me a blurb for the book.
So go on the back cover.
Yeah. So that stunned me.
Wow.
It's good news.
Yeah, no, I mean, you need all the,
I know.
because they don't like it when you have the blurbs like your grandma. Right?
I know.
My granddaughter's book is so good.
It's
You
so
won't
good.
buy it. Not many people buy copies based on that kind of endorsement. So.
For sure.
But no, that's one. But can you talk about the content of the manuscript? Is does it have sort of themes that you were working with particular?
Well, definitely the theme of loss and death, people killing themselves, the loss of a child, which are hard things to write about. Also, I'm just obsessed with train travel. So a good section of the book is about train travel, and the first poem is about flying in an airplane. But on a lighter side, there's a sonnet in there that's just, a tribute to a piece by Morton Lauritsen called Lux Aeterna. Not quite as heavy-handed.
Okay, all right.
Let's see, other themes. Actually, the last poem in the book is, in the third part rather, is somewhat related to the first part in that the mention of angels occurs in both poems.
Oh, well, why don't you give us
Sure, I think the best thing to do would be to just read the first and last.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
Yeah. The first one is called The Gift of Transatlantic Flight. Angels breathe infinity on top of the rotating world as we depart from one day and enter another. Earthlight shimmers, sun rising, setting, moonlight enters, disappears, clouds slide underneath us, the engine faint as a whisper. My fingers splayed against a naked, thick but tinsel window, silent conversations, minds talking loudly, their pilot reassurance voices ascend in crashing volume in the quiet of our ears. In the leaving behind of parents, children, even my pale glass reflection. The plane's slender wings soon rests in sky and cloud, one light beaming at its end, finger poised to touch stars. Our plane lets the heavens own it, if only for a slipping moment as it breathes into ascent. Watches tick in unison. We, supported by wings, wind, calm, fail with clock-like precision to measure time's passage, this unopened present, this gifted passage from shore to shore.
Ooh. I like how you throw in, you use words that which would be terrifying in the context of a crash, but you use them in the unrelated, to add that sort of tension, as opposed to, crashing, but you were not actually crashing. And so anyway, I like that.
Thank you.
Sorry, go on.
That's okay. The last poem in the book is actually in some ways sort of indirectly to that we need to be more concerned about the environment. I don't really come right out and say that, but it sort of points to that a little bit at least. It's called Winter Solstice. Earth silences itself into the dark. Leafless trees extend into longest night, their gnarled branches arthritic fingers folded into prayer. Earth is old, poised in the present, desires no future, no past. Troubled greenery departs as the earth peaks into its own still lucid oceans, waits like a lover for the flame of the not yet lit candle, appears to drift to the interstellar space traveler, tries to see itself in its own abyss, but has no ego or mirrors. Starlings fly in mass in the naked spaces between startled tree branches. Time passes, then dies, lost to thickening darkness, but still the quiet drift out of gravity, pulled by angels to some birth our eyes will never see.
So talk to me about the, I guess the unpublished part. You were, I mean, it was sort of an inspirational type of theme as well.
Yeah, actually, well, do you mind if I talk a little bit about the essays in the book, or
Sure,
just
you can
briefly?
talk about yeah.
Because I think that that part of it is the first essay in the book is actually I start out with the poet Rilke, who had written a letter to a young poet, and I tried to model what I wrote in that essay by directing my letter to all of the unpublished poets out there,
all
and
right.
stating
Very nice.
both my empathy and my cheerleading and
Okay.
and you know all the stuff that goes into it, and it's just well, three of us know how hard it is.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah.
But you just have to keep throwing out your
Oh, I know.
stuff into
I
the
know.
hands of the unknown. And,
Yeah. Into the abyss.
Into the abyss, yeah, right. Well, it's that leap and the net will appear is the
Right.
hope.
Well put.
And so, how is your experience with ACTA been like? How was this a contest that they were
No,
offering,
it
or
wasn't.
was-
It wasn't a contest at all. I just contacted them because I had heard about them through a few other people I knew who had been published there. And I spoke to the publisher directly at the Thomas Merton conference, and I said, "Do you publish poetry?" And he said, "Yes."
Okay.
I think he took a risk. I think he took a chance on me, which I'm very grateful for.
Wow.
Very good place to work with. Very hardworking people. Very ethical. I can't say enough good things
Wow.
about them.
Okay. Well, this is. I mean, talk to me about your friendship and over the years and.
You can go first.
And sort of how that's informed your writing or your work. I don't know.
Well, you know, we've never lived near one another. I mean, Marjorie lives in the city. I live in the suburbs. It's always been that way. I grew up in, out in Elk Grove Village and Palatine, and
I grew up
so-
in the suburbs, but didn't stay.
but didn't
yeah.
stay. And then she's been down in the the Northwest Side for a long time, and we haven't seen each other all that frequently, but through email. Every once in a while, we'll email furiously about our writing and share our work with each other. And we tried over the years have gotten together, usually in the summer, once or twice. I've gone on adventures together, and this summer we're at the conference together at the Midwest Writing Center in Davenport. But we've both also been teachers.
Okay.
I've been teaching at the same place all these years, and Marjorie's jumped around various places with her teaching, and so we've had that also to share. So what would you add to that?
I think part of what keeps us together, even though we don't see each other that often, I think we both have a firm belief in iconoclasm and, stepping out of safe boundaries at times, I think.
Thick skins.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, that's interesting that you mentioned thick skin, because there's an essay in the book about that makes fun of how we've all been told to have thick skin, and
right.
I try to take a lighthearted approach to that.
Okay. All right.
So, but it's a good ongoing relationship, even though we don't see each other. We're supportive of each other's writing.
Yeah.
Very much.
What about sort of different influences? I mean, while you did go to the same grad school, do you find that what informs your writing or what influences your writing, other poets or other writers?
Yeah.
Is that
Well, some of the poets that come to mind are Maxine Kumin and Sylvia Plath, both who I think are really wonderful poets. In terms of short story writers, I guess Raymond Carver, but I shouldn't go off on too much of a tangent on that because we're not talking about poetry.
What about you, Kate?
Well, yeah, Maxine Kumin as well. And with her recent death, I've gone back and read a lot of her work. I love to read lots of contemporary poetry. Kay Ryan, I love the way she weaves a little internal rhyme, those little tiny poems.
Like Fabergé eggs.
Oh yeah, they're so wonderful. I love using internal rhyme. It's so much fun. Mary Oliver, of course, the nature poet. Linda Pashton, who's not a hugely known poet, but one who speaks to me because she writes of, like Kumin, kind of the everyday and being a mother. Jane Canyon, love her poetry. The poetry of this moment, and finding meaning in that.
Well, why don't you read another selection?
All right. Why don't I read the? Why don't I read the title poem? This is a poem about my son, who you mentioned in the introduction today. He's an adult with autism, and funny. I don't read a lot of poetry about Raymond because I guess when you live something every day, you don't often find the poetry in it, Mm-hmm. But this idea came to me because he's kind of obsessive about wanting to know where everything is all around him. And so every summer we take these trips just to visit a new grocery store or a new whatever he's heard of being built somewhere. So this is about that experience, and it's called Map Making, so it is the title poem of the book. He wants to know where every road ends, needs to fill with a crayon's candor the white limbo all around him. So in June, when long light beckons, we follow one blue line a day, his eyes hungry beside me as he catalogs each new world, its carpet of storefronts, billboard clusters and train car bungalows, coloring in the map lines in his mind. What trick of a synapse can spark such desire? A curiosity as eager as any, driven outward in one dimension, the mastery of the earth he walks upon, when it cannot turn inward or beyond itself to wonder why or how. Like a tiny figure trapped in a snow globe, he stretches his arms wide to trace patterns along the glass, those blue lines bound by the atlas edge, each journey bound by a day. One spring, we'll choose a road that carves the continent in two, and he'll see everything. How mountains rise from wheat fields and bridges leap great ravines, how small towns and cities alike may teem with easy kindness. We'll lose count of ready marts, be dizzied by a million fleeting milepost signs. Let infinite sky and whirring wheels fill and fill his maps like daffodils blooming across a glen. And when at last we reach the sea and turn to come back home, may he believe that this brimming road belongs to him.
Wow, that's very beautiful.
That is.
So it is a constant worry that I have, how he will get along, when we're gone. So it's a common theme in a lot of writing by parents of children with special needs.
So are you going to take that trip?
I don't know. Ironically, he doesn't travel well.
Oh, okay.
So maybe we'll do it metaphorically.
Okay, all right.
He would love to go to California. He wants to go to Disney World. He wants to go to the Sesame Street Children's Television Workshop set in New York.
Okay.
So he talks about wanting to do these things, but I don't know. It's hard to get him out of his routine.
Sure.
He gets very anxious. So we'll see.
Okay. Did you have another poem that you wanted to
Just one quick one, because it's for my daughter. It's called Ultrasound. The time is 15:54:59. The technician greases my tummy and looks for signs of life. I'm getting a probe type line B 3.50 MH2 section D mode 1B ultrasound. The numbers, the letters, my stare, first the wall, then the ceiling, finally the sterile curtains, white floor to ceiling, closed wall to wall. And then the curtains open, a medicinal shaft of light, and I pause for a moment between dark and light before I become vertical. In the gray triangle against black background photo, you are only 7 weeks and 1 day old, and already your heart beats within mine. Caring is what we do best, states the caption. I prepare to leave, your photo pressed between my 2 unwashed hands, walk downstairs one very small step at a time, until the morning sun knows no clouds in the periwinkle blue sky, and my hand glides across my tummy to touch one brilliant ray of you. We love our kids, don't we?
That's very true. And I had talked to you, I did read that poem about laundry, if you could read that one.
Oh, yes, yeah. This is about my father, the other person who I've spent time, a lot of time with recently. He's moved back after losing my stepmother, who this poem is also about. So when I went to visit when she was in her last stages of cancer, this poem came from that. It's called Survival Skills. She's teaching him to do laundry, a small load of bath towels for practice. His gray head leans toward hers as she pours with a shaky hand. Just half a cup, she tells him. You'll never need more. And warm is fine for colors, even though the tags say only cold. She knows he will not remember. Still, teaching him fulfills her duty. One more item checked off the list. One less stone in the bag holding her to this hard earth. She pushes one button, then another. That's all there is to it, she says. All you need to know. And it is for that brief moment, he thinks, watching through the convex glass where the water rises, slowly subsuming the deep red towels. He stands with her to watch it fill, this machine that knows what to do. They wait to hear the click, then the pause, and then they know the roiling will begin.
Okay, I love that one.
I do too.
Sorry.
I do too.
Although I did, when I first read it, I think I mentioned to you, I was just focused on, just because I saw it as a metaphor actually for I've got 2 teenagers who are getting ready to go off into the world on their own, and of course there's the whole idea of making sure that I done my duty teaching them everything they need to know, including laundry, before they go off to whatever. But, let's just sort of wrap up, because I know we're getting close to the end. And thank you both so very much for being my guest today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And I'm hoping that we'll work it out, that you can be a guest as our featured poets for an event that Highland Park Poetry will have in 2016. Yes. So everybody should keep a look at the schedule, because they might be back. Fingers crossed.
That would be wonderful.
That would be wonderful. And of course, I wish you both best of success in promoting your books. It's so exciting. This is a big milestone.
It really is. Yeah,
it is. You've been writing for a long time.
And finally it occurs.
Right. Yeah. The Unpublished Poet. I love the title, because it's just like
very down to earth.
Well, but it's just like, you keep trying and trying and trying. And so it's so fabulous that you're published, and you're published. Yay!
Keep interviewing people as well.
Well, yes, I do have to. I gain inspiration from meeting other poets and talking about their experience, because it encourages me in my own to keep going. And I'm working on my 2nd manuscript, and we hope to get it out there.
Yeah.
And we don't have a chance to talk to other poets all that often. We're
I know. Yeah,
we're a small little subculture, but it's nice to know that we are out there doing our work, right? And
well, and writing itself is sort of a solitary
very
activity.
much.
So it's interesting when we're having to come together, have a place to come together. But thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
It was wonderful.
Great.